Hello everyone, this is Mark Anthony Taylor. I'm producing this podcast, which is a constructive criticism of UKIP. So unlike the Telegraph, I'm not just going to lay into these politicians. I'm going to look at their homepage with, well, they haven't quite got a manifesto, it's more or less a list of issues they call it. So I'll go through that one by one. I haven't prepared for this, so this is all coming from the top of my head. But maybe constructive criticism help build a better manifesto. Now let's have a look down here. We have return power to the UK. A vote for UKIP is a vote to leave the EU and recover power over national life. Now, a few years ago, I remember reading that UKIP wanted this referendum to take us out of the EU. I'm not a great fan of referendums, and I don't know why they just couldn't say vote for us and the day we're in power is the day we leave the EU. I mean, we don't really want to vote for a party to take us out of the EU, only so that they can supply a manifesto that fails. Which is a double failure. If enough people vote for UKIP, then that should be the end of British membership of the EU. It shouldn't require any other vote. What's done is done. Next article is free trade, but not political union. I'd agree with that. And then the third article, binding local and national referenda at the public's request on major issues. I've seen Switzerland provide facilities for these automatic referenda, which looks quite good. But, the British history of referenda I don't think is too good. When we entered the EU on the basis of a referenda, and it's just part of and parcel of the system of lies of government. And you agree to something, but what you get is completely different. And with an election, there's a time expires, and then of course you can vote for a replacement. You vote for the end of the party, and hopefully you get the end of their policies. With a referenda, it's not clear how long these referenda apply for. And with the EU, of course, we haven't had a new one to ask whether we should remain in it, so I'm not too favourable with that. I think Nigel should delete that. It's not essential. And we have protect our borders, the next heading. Regain control of our borders and immigration, only possible by leaving the EU. I don't think that's a non sequitur. I think we can keep control of our borders and be in the EU. I mean, the EU Eurocrats would shout and scream, but ultimately they depend more on our money than we do on them, and they don't play by the same rules. And in this next part, immigrants must financially support themselves by means of private health insurance, etc. Well, in Germany here, where I live, I have to have private health insurance, and I live in private housing. So, but private health insurance, that's mandatory, that's dictated by the government. So as an immigrant, as a migrant into Germany, I have to obey that law. So the fact that immigrants in Britain can rely on the National Health Service, I mean, that's duplicitous. And why are the German Eurocrats telling the British people that immigrants are entitled to NHS money when the reverse is not true, when British immigrants in Germany have to have private medical insurance? So that hypocrisy should be shouted and screamed in the EU Parliament, and hammered and hammered and hammered. And that wouldn't be such an issue if we can force all of the migrants in Britain just to obey the same rules as they do in Germany. The next segment here, points-based visa system and time-limited work permits. Well, I'd say Britain is really critically overpopulated. And one of the problems is not so much that we've got all these unemployed or unemployable immigrants taking the welfare, but the real problem is that a lot of the people at the top, they're immigrants, and they have allegiances to their homelands, to their nations, to their races. And it means the top of society, the elite, they're not English, they're not British, they've got no allegiance to the people. So the issue isn't the poorer half of these immigrants, but the richer half who are taking the power and the authority away from English people, and really rendering us into the state of Palestinians in a kingdom which should be our own, but in which the reins of power has been given to these immigrants. So I don't agree we need a visa system. We just need to kick these people out, and we need to kick. I mean, it's not surprising that a lot of these immigrants are work shy, because they come to Britain thinking that they're going to make it rich, and after a couple of years on the minimum wage, they find out that the cost of living exceeds the minimum wage. Cost of living per hour exceeds £6, whatever the minimum wage is. And at some point they realise that the only way they can survive is to go on benefits. And when they're on benefits, they stay on benefits. So there's really no position or hope for them. And the best thing we can do is, give them a gentle push and show them the way to go home. And frankly, they're far better off, in India, where the cost of living is 1% of what it is in Britain. A lot of immigrants from India, doctors and programmers, they come to Britain thinking they're going to make it, and then they're back home. In India, cost of living is 1%, the wages are 10%. So they end up wealthier. So the people out of work, the immigrants, they need sending home. And the wealthier immigrants, if they've got a history of membership of any anti-British party, if they've expressed anti-British sentiment, well, we don't really want them in Britain. Third point here, proof of private health insurance must be a precondition to enter. Well, I think we're here for sufficiently aggressive controlling our borders. That's not such an issue.